Let us chant Namo Tassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. All right. So we have to start with page number 216 today, with table 5.5, right? But before we go on to table 5.5, I want you to draw your attention back to page number 212. We had two questions that I promised that I will ask a friend and get back to you. The first one was why the 16 planes have been represented by 15 in the chart. The second question was what is a prompted / unprompted? How does prompted and unprompted give resultants? The second one, he was like, he has to hurt someone. With regard to the prompted and unprompted. No, he wanted to refer some more books and let us know. But this 15, and this was rather silly, because in table 5.4, page number 213, there are 16 Rupa Vachara Bhumis altogether, fine material planes, isn't it? Right? But in the chart, table 5. Are we in the page? Mala, you okay? Yeah? All right. So in 212, we see that the fine material sphere has 15, right? And it is missing one, right? It was not the amalgamation of the abodes. It was the fact that they have disregarded entirely or rather, not disregarded entirely, they have brought or amalgamated the Asanna Satta plane to the 5 sense sphere resultants. Damsiri, does that make sense? Why that would happen? Damsiri, I can't hear you, Damsiri.
In the table 5.4, line 11,
yeah,
right? Asanya Satta is very clearly identified, not ignored.
The Asanna Satta plane, apparently when it comes to, because in the resultants,
Yeah.
The effects that give rise as rebirth linking, and anyways, Pavatikama is not there, no? Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Is together with the rest of the 5 sense sphere, right? So is together with the 5 sense sphere. There was nothing other than that which made sense in the fact of why it says 15 there. Other than the fact of the 5 sense in the Asana Satta plane, there is only Kammajaru, the act of the arising or that which fuels the arising of Kammajarupa, is also done by the same 5th jhana resultant, right? Jhana resultant. So other than that, there is no other reason to sort of say, okay, that the other planes have come together, other than the fact of it has to be the Asanna Tassa plane. Because the Asanna Satta plane, even at the time of rebirth linking, the rebirth linking is done through that specific consciousness. However, during the time of or when the birth in Asanna Satta arises, there is only Kammaja Rupa, there is not even Chitta Rupa. Right, only Kammaja Rupa, because Chitta is not there at all, right? And that maintenance within the plane, the body of the Asanna Satta being is done again also by the same karma. So the fifth jhana resultant maintains the body of the non-percipient being during the time the karma to remain within the non-percipient being is existent. Right?
Yeah. The Bhante, now if you see in the table 5.4, page number 213, fifth jhana upward, there are only 15 spheres of existence, not 16. Fifth jhana upward, right? So that means number 12, line number 12, fifth jhana, pure abodes. Then all the upward, if you count the spheres, realm of existence, there are 15 actually, not 16.
Yeah.
So that means they have counted in this classification. They have counted non-percipient beings also.
Within this chart, then we have to put it down to the fact of the chart. Then we have to email Bhikkhu Bodhi and ask him why he made the chart this way. Shall we do
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Yes.
Bhante,
yes, Chamari.
Bhante, so page 213,
Yes.
where the realms of existence,
Yeah.
where non-percipient beings are shown,
Yeah.
that's about the realm. And if you look at page 212, it's looking at results. So like you were saying, I had this conversation with Mihiri once, and then we rubbed it out because, it was something else,
Yeah.
and you were going to actually find out. So
Yeah.
this one is about results.
Yeah.
So actually in the non-percipient beings, there won't be any resultants, as you were saying,
Yeah.
because they would have just the life faculty or the Kammaja Rupa.
Only the Kamaja Rupa.
Yeah.
Only the Kamaja Rupa.
So this is about results. They won't have any results of any of the kammas.
Okay.
But to enter that sphere, you need a resultant, and
Yeah,
to leave that realm, you need a resultant karma.
The extraordinary fact of the plane, the extraordinary fact which is extraordinary and which is only a rule of chitta law within that plane, is that the consciousness that arises producing the rebirth linking process or the chuti process, within this path, the chitta does not arise within that plane, right? And
Yeah.
in the chuti chitta viti, right, would we then sort of go on to think that at the moment of chuti, at the moment of chuti, the chuti chitta viti does not arise in the asanna satta plane. Does not, Damsari.
How? Then how do you leave asana satta?
In the chuti chitta viti within the asanna satta plane.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. The process of rebirth linking, right?
Yeah.
Or that's the special part of this specific plane. The process of rebirth linking. Now, let's say, for example, I'm taking me for an example. I die and I'm going to the Asana Satta plane.
Yeah.
The process of rebirth linking happens in this life for me, not in the next.
Yeah.
And at the time of death or disappearance from the Asanna Satta plane, now I am Asanna Satta, right?
Yeah.
I'm going somewhere else, right? The rebirth linking happens where? In the next one, not in this birth.
Okay. That's specially for Asana Satta.
That is the specialty of Asana Satta. So then So then then the question mark is, then there's no question mark. The way that it happens is, now, for example, Bhante here, right? And then Asana
Mm.
Satta, and then, I don't know,
Yeah,
Dev, whatever here, right?
yeah,
The rebirth linking is from here and here
yeah.
in the next birth.
Hmm.
That is why the monk who was living in the asana, or who was asana satta for a very long time, when he was developing Pubbe Nivasanusati Jnana, he while he was going back, he was taken aback by the experience of skipping 500,000 birds altogether. It was like a blank space, right? It was like a blank space for him. And then he
Yeah,
comes to Buddha and he asks Buddha, this happened. He relates what happened. And then the Buddha says, so he did not see any part of the Asana Satta play. This
yeah.
monk did not see in Pubbe Nivasanusati Jnana, that is the
Mm.
knowledge of reminiscing past lives.
Hmm.
He entirely skipped. He did not even see the death moment of the Asana Satta. He did not know what this blank space was and why he had skipped so many years and gone before, or rather,
Yeah,
you know what I mean, right? So within the span of the Asana Satta Bhumi, no consciousness arises even at the time of death. So then what produces the karmic resultant offering rebirth, or rather put it in this way, what is the determinant?
mm,
You understand why I'm using the word determinant?
yeah,
Because karma determines where we go, isn't it?
yeah,
Right? So then this karma is only exhaustible owing to the kusala which had been developed before, rather than at the time of living as a asannasatta.
mm,
Right? At this moment, so really we have to burn out the whole karma of being able to be a asannasatta to now die from the plane of asannasatta. So that
Ca-
karma is what is then, because karma is the only line which karma and anusaya are the only two which are there, right? Because this karmic stream must be unable to continue for us to then die in asana satta. But the experience of death is rather unusual to the usual chuti, or the death consciousnesses or death consciousness series that arise for other beings anywhere.
Or can we explain this way? Now, because of your certain karma and resultant of that cause your birth in the asana satta, right? Now we'll say I'm here and I have done some specific karma to be born in the asana satta, right? So my chuti is actually instigating that karma to be born in the asana satta, right?
Okay.
Now, when you die, when you leave the asana satta, it is not any, because there's no actual karma in the asana satta. So uh, that rebirth is actually created due to your previous karma or previous resultant of your karma.
Which
So
karma?
not, sorry,
Which karma?
any, yeah, that means in your data bank you have got some karma, right? And when you leave asana satta, you activate that karma to be born in the next birth.
No, no.
Okay.
I don't think that would be absolutely accurate, because
Yeah.
surely another karma would come to rise. okay, let's think about this. Okay, there are no newcomers produced within the plane of Asana Satta.
Yes, that's right. Yes.
It is only a process, or during that time of life, it is only a process of exhausting the fifth jhana karma, which leads or can lead to an Asana Satta rebirth.
Yeah.
Is
Okay.
that understood by everyone?
Yeah.
Right? It is through a fifth jhana karma that we are able to be born in the non-percipient plane.
Yeah.
That fifth jhana karma is powerful, right? That karma needs to be exhausted in order for us to pass away or move on from the
Yeah. Okay.
being, right? Plane. Other karmas, then what comes to play is another karma upon the exhausting of this karma,
Hmm.
that would then step in to produce a rebirth linking
In
in
the next.
following rebirth.
Yeah.
But if we take it as a disruptive karma, it is not a disruptive karma. Rather, it is only the exhausting of the fifth jhana resultant, which would cause the non-percipient existence.
Yeah.
Did the others understand? Any sort of confusion? Hemamali, Noeline, Chamari? I mean, if
Yes,
you don't,
Bhante, I understood.
yeah.
Yeah.
Noeline? Yeah? Who didn't understand the point? I'm very happy to go over it again. Dil? And Dil, we can't hear you.
But I'm sorry, I missed about a good 7 or 8 minutes of the lesson at the beginning. So I'm only catching little bits of it, but that's okay. I'll re-listen to it. So I really didn't fully understand. Because I wasn't there for the beginning of it.
Hemamali?
So, but if you repeat it again for someone else, I would be glad to hear it. If not, I will listen to it when later.
Hemamali? If anyone didn't understand, just let me know. Hemali, okay? Or not okay?
Yes. Yeah, yeah. I'm all right, Bhante.
Pushpa?
I'd be thankful if you could repeat it, please.
Okay.
Oh,
So,
thank you.
in usual circumstances, what would happen is the process of chuti happens, or the process of rebirth linking would happen in this birth, and the process would continue to allow for the rebirth process to continue, allowing for the development of chitta, the cultivation of chitta rupa, kamaja rupa, ahara rupa, all of these types of rupas, isn't it? Right? That's a normal process, right? So we have a part of the rebirth linking process on this side, and then the effects arising on the other side as we attain or move on from this life. Within or in the instance of being born as a asana satta, which comes about when a person has developed the fifth jhana, fifth absorption, this process is a bit extraordinary from the usual processes. Why it is extraordinary is, first of all, within the plane of asana satta, we only have non-percipient beings, we only have karma and anusaya operating. There is no consciousness whatsoever. No consciousness whatsoever. Because of this, the process that allows existence within or as a non-percipient being is a little bit different. How is it different? The process of dying happens from this birth, but the only thing that arises as a result in the next birth, which is within the non-percipient realm, is only kammaja rupa. When we have exhausted, when we have lived 500,000 years, I can't remember the lifespan of non-percipient beings. Maybe someone remembers. Within
I
the
think it's,
sorry, Chamari, how much?
sorry, Bhante, I think it is 500 great eons.
Yes. Okay. Within that time span of you can double check and let us know. So within that span of life, right? That whole entirety, within that whole entirety, one might imagine how is the body maintained, right? Because there's a body, isn't it? And the body is impermanent, right? It's a material structure, right? That body is maintained through the power of karma, right? Through the power of karma. When one fine day after 500 great eons, if that amount is correct, after that amount of time, then the process of passing away is again unusual, because one would just disappear. There is no process of mind that arises. And the consciousness restarts not within the non-percipient plane, but wherever else one is reborn, owing to past karma determined before, even before one goes into the non-percipient plane. Is that understood? Yeah. So the example that we have is, there was this monk, he developed the knowledge of being able to reflect upon past lives. And one fine day when he was reflecting, he was going back and back and back. And all of a sudden he found that he went back, this span of time, that one would be this span of time. And he didn't know, it was just a blank space. It was almost as if, just wham, you're, so much, in the past. And he went to the Buddha utterly confused. And he asked the Buddha, he related this to the Buddha. And the Buddha said, that is because you were in the Asanna Satta plane. And within the Asanna Satta plane, there is no consciousness. That is why you are unable to see it. Yeah. So, unable to see it. Is that understood now? Yeah.
Now, Bhante,
Yes.
the before the Asannasatta plane, the consciousness in the birth before the Asannasatta plane, does that consciousness go to the following one after the, how does the consciousness go to the one after the Asannasatta plane?
Yes. That is a phenomena that we do not entirely know. It is said, what we do know is that it is the power of the consciousness itself, right? That it is a power of the consciousness itself. It is somewhat like a phenomena like the Nirodha Samapatti, but not, but it is a phenomena of that sort, right? Which we entirely do not know, because this anomaly is quite unique just to the Asanna Satta plane, right? Just to the Asanna Satta plane. Is there any other way that we know?
Bhante, freezing of consciousness is possible. That means stopping the consciousness at any sort of stage and then refreezing the consciousness.
Where else do we see it?
In what is that? The Rahat Nirodha Samapatti. Nirodha Samapatti is completely freezing the consciousness, right?
Yeah.
And so that means, and then of course within the power of mind, when you have Nirodha Samapatti, you can identify when you should actually restart the consciousness. So it's probably something very similar to that. I think most of the books, they explain Nirodha Samapatti and Asanna Satya together.
And if we take what Nirodha Samapatti is as a practice, and also to understand,
Yeah,
person goes into the Asanna Satta plane, these two individuals are profoundly developed in mind. Of course,
Yeah.
a person who is able to attain Nirodha Samapatti is would be, you know, much profoundly developed for sure. However, the ability, as we have spoken of in the fifth jhana, this power of aversion to mind and the power of determination, which goes into now Nirodha Samapatti. If you remember, I think we touched on it some time ago, where there is a determination factor when it comes to Nirodha Samapatti.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very similar to the way that one would perform, or the Buddha would perform, Abhinyana. Right? The power of the mind exercised in determining effectively when one goes into samadhi, the time that one stays within samadhi, and the time that one comes out of samadhi. This is entirely determined by that strength of consciousness which allows for such an accurate, keen, and undisturbed determination to carry on. That is a similarity that we can see in the process of accessing Nirodha Samapatti, and also accessing or going into any sort of jhana, but of course, jhana being so profoundly serene and unhindered, right? We can understand this kind of a similar process in that as well.
Yeah.
Yes, interesting. Okay, so we'll await the prompted and unprompted, okay? අපසේගේ ප්‍රශ්න හින්දා මේ ගොඩ කට්ටිය කරදරේ. But I remember this was when we were studying as well. It was a question that we did not get a clear answer to. Let's see what this monk comes up with, because he's absolutely brilliant. Okay, shall we move on then?
Yeah.
Okay. So we did part of we went through the table, right? And when you study the table on your own, was it clear? Yes? Was it? It was quite straightforward, isn't it? We went through it. So then let us start with para 31. Results of the fine material sphere, wholesome karma. Something else that we have to, I don't think it is within the book. No, I don't think it is. I can't remember it being in the book. But something that we will have to go over to further nourish this chapter is group karma. Right? Group karma. There are, in certain ways, karmas can be cultivated in groups. Right? And depending upon the karmas that can be cultivated in groups, the resultants would also be experienced in groups, right? You might have not heard the word group karma, but something that you might have heard is nanatta kaya nanatta sanya, ekatta kaya nanatta sanya, ekatta kaya ekatta sanya, and ekatta kaya ekatta sanya, which is nanatta kaya nanatta sanya. What kind of beings? Do you understand the Pali? No. Nanatta kaya, nanatta, vividatve. Right? The what's the English word for something like nanatta kaya? That the bodies are nanatta. They are different from one another. Nanatta sanya, the perception is different from one another. Right? Can you give me an example of a group of beings who has nanatta kaya, nanatta sanya?
Our group, we are different. And that's
Exactly. Yes. Then what about, yes, humans, right? Humans are Nanatakaya Nanatasan. We will go, it is another lesson altogether. Maybe we'll do it at the end of this chapter. We will do it, but we have to study that through the sutras. Nanatakaya Nanata Sanya. Then give me an example of Ekat Nanatakaya Ekatta Sanya.
Arahants.
No. Why not? Can anyone? Why are Arahants not Nanattaka Ekatta Sanya? One Arahant can live in a forest. Another Arahant may live in the town. Another Arahant may live doing Dushrakriya. They are austeric practices like Mahakassapa, like the Monaya Patipada. So the Sanya is different. Then we have, so we said Nanatakaya Ekatta Sanya. Beings in hell. Right? Beings in hell. Nanatakaya Ekatta Sanya. Why is Ekatta Sanya? Example. Beings in Avicii, they will burn and burn and burn without pause. Everyone will be burning. Equally. The conditions of the world for those beings are such that they are impotent. Why? Because there are no conditions to support Nanata Sanya. I feel like you're confused. Dil? Is that clear?
Yeah, I suppose it's clear in the that everybody is burning. But I was thinking that even in Arahants, they perceive things. This perception is that they have. They don't see wholesome and unwholesome. So their perception is it's the same, I thought.
Remember, no. This is Abhidhamma. Perception, we know, can happen in different ways. We can perceive different things, right? It's not the attitude by which perception is achieved. It is what is perceived.
Right. Okay, Bhante. Now I understand.
Yeah. What is perceived. Right?
Yeah.
So this is group karma, and we have to go through it maybe at the end of this. We'll go through it separately. This is a way of encouraging or rather enriching the understanding upon karma, right? For example, a good example of group karma is, we know, Venerable the Buddha, as a bodhisattva through the eons, something that he did was, he was, Yashodhara, Mahamaya, Mahaprajapati, Gautami, all of these people, me suffering Tathaganapu Kandayamak. They are a group of people who have been practicing together. Hence, they also attained enlightenment together. Right? That is a prime example of group karmas. Sometimes, partners can be people who have cultivated group karmas in samsara. Right? Sometimes best friends can be people who have cultivated group karmas in samsara. Right? In a way that you are on the same path reaching towards the same thing. Why? Because you've done stuff together, right? But we'll go into that. But that is something that would further enrich and may help us understand what kammas are. We'll do that after we've covered all of this. So, para 31, page number 216. As regards wholesome kamma of the fine material sphere, as regards wholesome kamma of the fine material sphere, those who develop the first jhana to a limited degree are reborn into Brahma's retinue. Developing the same to a medium degree, they are reborn among Brahma's ministers. Developing to a superior degree, they are reborn among the Maha-Brahmas. Similarly, developing the second jhana and the third jhana. What are we doing this Wednesday? Is it a new sutta or have we started a sutta?
Have to start a new sutta.
Okay, so
read the short one and we finished it.
We finish it. Okay, let's do group kammas. Is it okay if we do it on Wednesday?
Yes, fine.
Yeah. Then we can just go ahead with the book and do that as a sutra. Yeah. Okay. We'll do group kammas on Wednesday. Okay. Similarly, during developing the second jhana and the third jhana to a limited degree, they are reborn among the gods of minor lastra. Developing them to a medium degree, they are reborn among the gods of infinite lastra. Developing them to a superior degree, they are reborn among the gods of radiant lastra. Right? Radiant lastra. Make a point, something that to understand what loves a person to go beyond, we have to look closely at the jhana factors and the 5 levels of jhanic mastery. Right? And compare the mastery with the jhana factors for a comprehensive understanding of what kind of differentiation of practice helps us to attain these different stages. Do you understand? Make a point next to your book, right? Not next to your book, on your book. Developing the 4th jhana to a limited degree, they are reborn among the gods of minor aura. Developing it to a medium degree, they are reborn among the gods of infinite aura. Developing it to a superior degree, they are reborn among the gods of steady aura. Developing the 5th jhana. Developing the 5th jhana, they are reborn among the gods of great reward. Developing dispassion towards perception, they are reborn among the non-percipient beings. But non-returners are reborn in the pure abodes, right? In the pure abodes. So there are 5 pure abodes. I do not think I know of a reason where the differentiation between the 5 is. Does anyone else know? No one? Okay, I'm going to write that down and ask. Look, Chamari, do you know Chamari?
Sorry, Bhante, no, not yet.
Okay. Not yet. Okay, then we will learn together, I guess. Okay. 5 Suddhavas. Okay.
Excuse me, Bhante.
Yes, Devika.
Can I ask a question? I suddenly became curious when all these beings in the Asana Satya, they have long periods of time in that. When a Buddha is born, and what happens to people who are there? I mean, will they come back to the real world and attain Nibbana immediately? What happens? I was curious to find out.
So we are talking about, again, can you repeat your question, please?
Okay, the question is this.
Yeah.
Like the beings who are in Asana Satya for the long periods of time, And if it is a Buddha Utpada Kala and Buddha is in the world again, what happened to those beings? Will they come back suddenly, you know? What happened? I was curious to know.
I mean, we can't say that something will happen in definite terms, right? It all depends on the karma that they have after the exhausting of the fifth jhana karma, or the fifth jhana exhausted, right? So we can't definitely say, Devika, that this is going to happen, you know. The Buddha being there or not being there, it all depends on the karma again.
Okay.
You know, so because it is such a long time, there's a very high risk that during this time a Buddha can arise and pass away as well, you know, being within the non-percipient beings, and you're going to miss it entirely. Yeah. And I think, I mean, if you take I mean, if you try to even comprehend, we are not able to comprehend, but if you even attempt to comprehend the mindset of a being who has cultivated karma, which has allowed this being to be reborn within a state such as Asanna Satta, it is very difficult to resonate with such a being, because I mean, we have not experienced it, isn't it? Where the state of mind, it must be so profoundly, the jhanic experience must be so profoundly amazing that there is that sense of connectedness to such an experience, you know, where this being upon death will be reborn as a being with only a body and no mind. I mean, I can only imagine what that experience might be. I mean, I can't even imagine really, you know, but it might be a very profoundly blissful state to be within, you know, because as we have discussed earlier, chittas, karma, patisandhi, these things give you exactly what you want through the core of your being. They don't go against you.
Yes.
Right? So people who would think that, oh, you know, I'm going to be dragged to hell, you are dragged to hell because there's a part of hell in your mind. You know, people who think, oh my gosh, I'm going to become a preta, you become a preta because there's a part of a preta inside of you. You know, if you're going to heavens or the high heavens or the Brahmas, that's because there's a part of that world inside of you that has a sense of clinging, that has a sense of recognition with the identity that you have perceived yourself to be and become. Karma or chittas or the process of patisandhi does not give you stuff that you don't want. It gives you something that you are intrinsically hanging on to. But this can be very subconscious. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Yes,
Bhante, I'm not sure about the Asanyatale, but I read the story of Asita Tapasya, who was there at the birth of Siddhartha Gautama, and he cried. He first smiled and he cried. He cried because he was going to the Brahma world. And when this prince becomes the Buddha, he knew he couldn't come down and listen to Dhamma. That's why he cried. So that means even if they want to, they can't come down and listen to Buddha's preachings, isn't it? Otherwise, he could have come down and listen to Dhamma and attend Arahatud or something.
I think the reason that he was crying was the fact that he won't live long to be able to
see Buddha.
Avakas of the Buddha. It was not a question. Actually, I remember somewhere, I can't tell you exactly where it was, Mala, but I remember as if Asita came down as Brahma at one point. I remember something of the sort. Somewhere.
I haven't heard that.
Where Asita comes to listen to the Dhamma and the Buddha says, this is this person. Maybe I'm just tripping, but I remember something of the sort. But the real reason that he was crying, because he had such great, I mean, it was such a rarity, and Asita understood this even as a tapasa who, you know, had no sort of knowledge of nirvana and all of these things. He understood the difference this man was going to make for the entire world, and he wanted to be beholden to that. I mean, he wanted to see it happening.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
and he cried because he wouldn't live long as a human to be able to see it, because he was like his ayu, the end of the ayu sanskarpa.
Mm.
You know,
Mm.
you know, I mean, one of the rare opportunities, I mean, Brahmas can't get ordained and be monks, no. It is only humans who can do that, right? So, I mean, what privilege is it to be in the retinue of the Buddha during the time the Buddha is living? That is the reason he cried. You know, that is the reason he cried. Okay. Someone, it was weird. Someone in the morning actually called me and told me, reminded me of this story. So, yeah, anyways. So I heard this story twice today. All right, let's go. Right to para 31. Wholesome karma of the fine material sphere. Each of the 5 fine material sphere jhanas produces its karmic result. The resultant fine material sphere chitta, that is its own exact counterpart. Right? Each of the 5 fine material sphere jhanas produces as its karmic result, the resultant fine material sphere chitta, that is its own exact counterpart. This chitta is the only resultant produced by the wholesome jhana chitta itself. Again, this chitta is the only resultant produced by the wholesome jhana chitta itself. That's an important point right there, right? The wholesome chittas generated in the preparatory stages of meditation, culminating in jhana, are sense sphere wholesome chittas. Again, the wholesome chittas generated in the preparatory stages of meditation, culminating in jhana, are sense sphere wholesome chittas, and their results accordingly are sense sphere resultants, not fine material resultants. The fine material sphere resultant chitta performs only the 3 functions of rebirth, linking, bhavanga, and death. This means that it occurs only as a process-freed consciousness. It does not occur within the cognitive process, nor does the wholesome jhana chitta produce any resultants occurring in the cognitive process. We knew that already, isn't it? Right? Resultant chittas do not operate within the cognitive process. All resultant chittas occurring in the cognitive process, with the exemption of the supramundane fruits, phala chitta, are sense sphere resultants. Right? What are these sense sphere resultants? Just to re-jog our mind. Anyone? We have the ahetuka, we have the ahetuka resultants, and we have the sobhana sadhana, sobhana resultants, the beautiful ones. Yeah. Okay. Each wholesome jhana chitta. Does anyone have a question, Noeli?
Not yet, Bhante.
Okay. Each jhana, each wholesome jhana chitta generates rebirth in the fine material realm that corresponds with its own level. We know that as well. However, the fine material realms are structured in accordance with the 4 jhanas of the Suttanta system into 4 broad tiers rather than 5. And thus, the 2nd and 3rd jhana chittas of the Abhidhamma 5-fold analysis of jhana both produce rebirth into the fine material realms corresponding to the 2nd jhana of the Suttanta system. Okay, in the Suttanta system. Is that understood? Okay. The lower 3 tiers of the fine material world each consist of 3 distinct realms. These realms are the spheres of rebirth. The lower three tiers of the fine material world each consist of three distinct realms. These realms are the spheres of rebirth for those who develop the corresponding jhana to 3 degrees of mastery. Sorry, to 3 degrees of mastery: limited, medium, and superior. Hina, Madhyama, and Panita Dhyana. Right? Dhyana. The Dhyana Chitta itself is not distinguished into different types according to the 3 degrees of development. Right? That is understood. What does that mean? Vitaka Vichara pages Ekagrata is not taken into consideration or divided in any way when it comes to this three-tier base analysis. It wholly depends on the level of cultivation. Right? It wholly depends on the level of cultivation. The chitta is defined as a jhana chitta. Am I at the right place?
Yes. Yes. You are.
Chitta, the chitta is defined as a jhana chitta of a particular type in terms of its constellation of chetasikas. Right? Constellation, I love the way that they have written that, constellation of chetasikas. Okay, and for any given jhana, these remain the same no matter whether the jhana is developed to an inferior, middling, or a superior degree of mastery. That is also understood, right? The Chetasikas are the same. The question comes, to what extent is the Chetasika cultivated or developed, right? However, the degree of development affects the potency of the chitta to generate rebirth. How? And thus, in each tier, 3 different realms are found as the objective counterparts of their different potencies, right? Of their different potencies. In the case of a meditator who has developed several jhanas, the highest one he still possesses at the end of his life is the one that he will take on the role of generating rebirth. Is that clear? Do some of you then imagine, oh, why? I mean, you would always want the best, isn't it? Right? In the sense of, and here it's actually not anything to do, no, it would be wrong if I word it in that way, because here you are going for the lightest, right? So here the best is the lighter, more profoundly developed state of mind, isn't it? You know, the less baggage you have, the freer, the more profound the experience of jhana is. Developing the 5th jhana. The principle according to which this plane is divided differs from that which divides the previous 3. In this plane, all whirlings, stream enterers, and once returners who develop the 5th jhana in the normal way, whether to a limited, medium, or superior degree, are reborn in the realm of great reward. Again, the principle according to which this plane is divided differs from that which divides the previous 3. In this plane, all whirlings, stream enterers, and once returners who develop the 5th jhana in a normal way, whether to a limited, medium, or superior degree, are reborn in the realm of great reward. Some whirlings, however, adopt the attitude that consciousness and perception are the root of all misery, and they develop the 5th jhana conjoined with a strong sense of dispassion towards perception. Because their fifth jhana chitta is, how do you pronounce that, Div?
Permeated.
Permeated by the wish for perception to cease, they are reborn in the realm of non-percipient beings. There, they exist as mere animate material bodies, the vital nonad. This is in the Dhamma Sangani, right? Disregard the vital nonad. Until they pass away and take rebirth elsewhere. Until they pass away and take, see how they have worded it. Until they pass away, it gives that impression that we spoke about before, doesn't it? Right? Until they pass away and take rebirth elsewhere. Is that understood? Any questions there?
Can I just clarify? So in this Asana Satta Bhante, they have these 500 Mahakappas. It's like, so all those who are there, their lifespans will be about 500 Mahakappas because they are there. And then because you have kind of felt that you have developed this viraga, this passion towards perception, that is the reason why you are born in Asana Satta. Is that the main reason why you are born there as a non-percipient being?
Yes, it is.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Bhante.
Yes, it is. I just, I mean, we have to double check on this, but I find it difficult to believe that all beings will live out. The potential is 500,000, 500 great aeons.
Mm.
But just like us, for example, the potential of this time is, let's say 120 years, right? It has reduced, but we are all not going to live 120 years, right? This is deemed by a lot of other factors, right? Of course, in these places, there are not, they are not as corrupt as, what I mean by corrupt is the food, the air, the bodies, all of these things are different in these planes. However, I find it difficult to imagine that all beings would have that full or would enjoy that full extent. So let me just clarify that as well, right?
Bhante,
Yeah.
so if you look at page 186, the realms of existence, there for humans, the lifespan is given as indefinite. So although the highest age would be, let's say, 100 years, we are not going to be all live or exhaust the 100 years. But for the others, they're not saying it's indefinite. So could it be that, yeah, it's good to clarify.
Yes, I think it's good to clarify. I mean, the reason, because the human plane is it's a fluctuating plane.
Yeah.
We know this, isn't it? With the
Yeah.
Akana Sutta and all of that, it goes up until Asankhayi and then comes down.
Yes.
Right. So it says it's indefinite. Let me clarify that.
Yeah.
Let me clarify that.
Bhante, can I also ask if you are aware that if you have this reality state, do you have any control, can you kind of intend that if you know that if you are in this impercipient realm, that you can't, that you don't have a mind and a consciousness, and that you can miss a Buddha being enlightened by listening to a Buddha, then would you still want to have so much of distaste or dispassion towards perception to miss it? Is there any reason why people would want to aspire for that? Because Nibbana being the ultimate goal, would you then intend and would you carry out your meditation practices and with the intentions that you do rather than focusing on Nibbana, would you then, and knowing that if you have so much of dispassion towards perception, that you can be in this realm, without a mind. Would somebody still want to do it, Bhante?
I think your question is more formed on the premise of a person living within a sasana, right? I mean, you're a person who, you and I and all of us are people who live within a sasana, who have some sort of idea about who a Buddha is. Imagine a time that this is not there, where we don't know about even the word Buddha. Then you would carry on with what practice you have, isn't it? And the Rupavachara Jhana, Arupavachara Jhana practices were there way before. These were during the time of the rishis, and even before that. These were the practices which came down from the habitual tendencies of the Brahmas.
So, Bhante, even during the Buddha's time, all these people who were not with all those various dittis, there are so many beliefs. Those people who didn't believe the Buddha, even though the Buddha was there, would you prefer to become one with, I don't know, with, the attainment of with Atman and, with Mahabrahma, whatever, they would then not want to have Nibbana. So for them, this might be the best thing possible to have to get to the fifth jhana, because they are not people who practiced Vipassana, because they were not followers of the Buddha, even if they were there.
Beings of this sort, I am sure, are extraordinarily different, right? And it would be difficult to imagine, because when we come to discuss about Brahmas and Mahabrahmas and all of this, beings would be focused upon that sort of a thing, and also to understand that coming into a state where someone gives you the guidance required to be able to step into a subtle pattern of thought of this sort is going to be incredibly rare. I mean, we are discussing all of these things because we have the Dhamma. If this Dhamma was not there, I mean, it's not going to be possible. We are not going to be hearing about any of this, So it is going to be incredibly rare to come across this.
So, Bhante, then we have to realize, be very grateful that we are at a time that we are not reborn as humans and in a Buddhotpada Kale, but we have actually come across these teachings because you're teaching us or somebody else is teaching us.
Oh, of course, with a great amount of gratitude, but of course to put them to when, for example, let's say something that you enjoy very rarely, and when, let's say, a dish of some sort, which is difficult to cook, or, you only enjoy it when you go back to Sri Lanka or a specific hotel, or, whatever it is. And when you have it, you're going to savor it. You're not only grateful for that plate of food or that type of food, you're going to enjoy it and make use of the taste that you can sort of enjoy with it, isn't it? In the same way, but when it comes to the practice, we must have that great sense of gratitude, but it also comes down to cherishing and enjoying and eating the piece of cake in front of you, right? Which often might go stale just because we are too busy being grateful rather than actually doing something about it also. You know what I mean? So yes, of course, it is something to consider great privilege.
It's like the aspiration that it's no point in knowing everything if you don't aspire for Nibbana and enjoy the fruits of it.
Yes, I mean, but when you take that thought, the thing is, aspiration for Nibbana is not a forced thought. It is a forced thought of insight, right? If you're forcing it, I mean, it's a person who, for example, I mean, we have in our Sri Lankan, it is part of our Sri Lankan culture where we would have sadhu sadhu, niman dakina labeva, even on the sort of the funeral, we have, niman suatpat veva, and all
Anichavata Sankara. It says Anichavata Sankara.
Anichavata Sankara, not only that, it says niman suatpat veva, niman labeva.
Yeah.
The only time, and the thing is, it doesn't happen like that. It only it's a thought that truly brings one to a sense where a thought where you can cultivate a sense of nibbana is of true insight, right? Is of true insight. And sometimes when we are sort of enthralled in something else just because something is of a certain nature, or because we forget, we mix the crux of it. We mix the crux of it. I remember when I was at Naoina, I shouldn't even be saying this, but it's such a funny story. There was this game in the village. There was this man who was an absolute drunkard. Yeah. And of course, for the village people, now, is their game pansala. So game aranya, game pansala, whatever it is. And so obviously they came to now and everyone knew that this man was an absolute drunkard. He never came to the monastery, but of course the family sometimes they give Pinnapata, the wife. And when he died, it was a young monk who was sort of dealing with these services, and he was adamant. He was adamant on the fact that we cannot ethically put Nimansu Atpat Veva on the banner. He was adamant on it to such an extent. He was like, no, this is going against my sila. This man is not going to be going to any place that is good. I can't be lying on the banner. And then, of course, Arinanda Hamdruka had to get involved, right? And it turned into a bit of a Sangha. They discussed this in the Sangha Sabha, of the Upos of the day, because this monk did not want to put Nivansua Patmeva, or Nivansua Labeva, or something of that sort, which would say that he was going to attain Nibbana. He was dead against it, so it doesn't just come out of you just wishing for it. Okay, let's get back. But non-returners are reborn in the pure abodes. It is said that rebirth into these 5 realms is determined by their predominant spiritual faculty. There you go. Okay, we got the answer. Okay. Non-returners in whom faith is dominant, is the dominant faculty, are reborn into the Aviha realm. Those in whom energy is dominant into the Atappa realm. Those in whom mindfulness is dominant into the Suddhasi realm. Those in whom concentration is dominant into the Suddhasi realm, and those in whom wisdom is dominant into the Akanitta realm. We got the answer there. Akanitta realm. Although none but non-returners are reborn into the pure abodes, there is no fixed law holding that all non-returners are reborn there. Again, although none but non-returners are reborn into the pure abodes, there is no fixed law holding that all non-returners are reborn there. Okay. It may be that the pure abodes are open only to non-returners who possess the 5th jhana, while non-returners with lower jhana will be reborn elsewhere in the fine material plane. However, all non-returners must be reborn in the fine material plane because they have eradicated sensual desire, kama raga, the fetter which leads to rebirth in the sensuous plane. Yeah?
Very interesting.
Very interesting. All right, so that is clear. Any questions?
All this time I thought that non-returners are in this pure birth. This is the first time that I realized that they will have to be born in the fine material, because they have created that, the Kamaraga has been the fetter which leads to the rebirth in the center, that they have eradicated it. So they can't be in the, in the sense, they can't be in the Deva realm, they have to be in one of the Brahmanas. Thank you, Bhante.
Yeah.
Bhante, in the previous chapter, we were talking about supramundane fruits, right?
Yeah.
And is there anything special about these 4 chittas? The reason I'm asking is, in the 55 javanas, they are karma producing chittas and no resultant chittas are there except these 4. Why is that?
Repeat that again.
Sorry?
Could you repeat the question again, please?
Yeah, I'm just asking if there's anything special about the supramundane fruits, the 4 chittas. The reason I'm asking is 55 javanas, they are karma producing chittas and no resultant chittas are included in the 55 except these 4 chittas, the supramundane resultants.
Okay.
All the others are wholesome and functional.
Okay. Okay.
And in javanas, we don't have resultant chittas. Why are these 4 in the?
Okay. We are talking about the reason that we don't have resultants is clear within the javanas, because
So we don't have resultant chittas. Why are these 4 there?
these four, are we talking about the path or the fruit?
The fruit.
Fruit.
These 4 are there, Noeline, because remember, in the process of experiencing or phala samapatti, it is through the phala chitta that we experience phala samapatti, and nirodha samapatti is also experienced through the fruit chittas. Because magga arises and it passes away, it will never arise again. But it is through the phala that one re-adverts to the state of the enlightened mind. That is why those 4 are there. The only resultants that are there.
Yeah, they are the only 4 resultants. Yeah.
And the only 4 resultants that can be recollected by determination of the mind. Phala samapatti, nirodha samapatti. Isn't it? Is that clear, Noeline?
Yeah, thank you, Bhante.
Right. Shall we move on? 32. Results of immaterial sphere wholesome karma. Developing wholesome karma of the immaterial sphere, they are reborn in developing wholesome karma of the immaterial sphere, they are reborn in the immaterial planes corresponding to their attainments. That is, one who has developed the base of infinite space and at the time of death has not lost it due to negligence and other hindrances, will be reborn into the realm of infinite space. Similarly, with respect to the other immaterial attainments, the highest attainment preserved at the time of death will generate rebirth into the corresponding realm. Again, that is, one that has developed the base of infinite space and at the time of death has not lost it due to negligence and other hindrances, will be reborn into the realm of infinite space. Similarly, with respect to the other immaterial attainments, the highest attainment preserved at the time of death will generate rebirth into the corresponding realm, same as the earlier. Right? Is that clear? Okay.
And is that just like in the jhanas? If you read something,
it is just like in the Dhamma. Yes. As in the case of the fine material sphere chittas, each immaterial sphere wholesome chitta produces as its result only in the corresponding chitta. Again, as in the case of the fine material sphere chittas, each immaterial sphere wholesome chitta produces as its result only its corresponding resultant chitta, that is understood, which fulfills only the 3 functions of rebirth, bhavanga, and death in the immaterial realm to which it pertains. To which it pertains. Is that clear? Again, similar to the earlier. Conclusion. Conclusion. Thus, sublime merit, determined according to planes, produces similar results at rebirth linking and in the course of existence. And in the course of existence, right? Now we have the process of death and rebirth.
Bhante, can I ask you just a thought that came up, because, not because of what is in the book. So, supposing somebody is practicing Vipassana and has developed any one of these sainthood stages, right? Say, so on, say. But it has also practiced jhana at the same time, samatha bhavana, and has at some point gone to different jhanas, but we just say the third jhana, just for. So does that mean that when you, but then after that, they may have not had jhana, but some point in their practice, they had done Yugananda and they had the third jhana. Does that mean that when they die, they will be born as a Sotapanna in the third jhana plane, in one of those words? Does that mean, because some point they had third jhana? So they are saying now that if you have had jhana at any point, you will be born in the highest jhana. They are saying that. And if you are Sotapanna or whatever it is, then you will go to that jhanic plane and be born. So you won't be born then in a human realm.
No. So you have two options.
Okay.
And it is determined. It is open to you. It does not mean that you have to be born there.
You can determine, is that?
Because remember, the Bodhisattva had jhanas, but he did not go to these planes.
But he was aspiring for Nibbana. But say an ordinary person, right, who is not.
He was aspiring not for Nibbana, he was aspiring for Buddhahood.
Buddhahood, I'm sorry, Buddhahood, yes, that's right. So if, what about other people?
It makes a whole lot of difference.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
It makes a whole lot of a
Yes.
difference when
Yes.
you Nibbana and
Yeah.
Buddhahood.
Yes.
For the other people, if the inclination or wish is there as a Sotapanna, they will be reborn in the higher realms, right? And there's a high chance that, yes, they will go ahead with the third. But if they have a specific reason as to which they wish to be reborn in the human realm, they can still be born in the human realm.
So if you have your priority that it's Nibbana that you need, then more likely you will be born in the human, because that's your main determination. You want to be an Arhat.
Not exactly. I mean, just because you want Nibbana does not mean that you can't attain Nibbana in these higher planes.
Okay. So really, you can be born here or there. That's what you're basically saying.
If you do not have a specific determination which would keep you within this sensuous plane,
Yeah.
there is probability that you will go ahead and be reborn in the third jhana plane.
Okay.
But this is a strong need that you possess, not a frivolous thought. You know what I mean? It is a strong need.
And I suppose if you are born in those realms, even there are some of these realms, that devas come and preach the Bana and teacher, because their practice has been like that. Maybe they have an opportunity to realize Nibbana in those realms, because they are always been listening to Bana and practicing and determining, even if they're born in those. We were told, I think one of the monks who gave a talk, that even in those realms, if you can listen to gods who come and preach the Dhamma, and then you can therefore progress in and advance. Am I right, Bhante?
I mean, I don't think it would be fair to assume that these places are very different from the places that we are in right now. Right? I mean, the circumstances, the bliss, the pleasures available to, and the human body itself would be of a higher quality, a higher degree, a higher beauty, and all of these things, right? But I think in the same way we have, same circumstances that we live in here, determinant upon the company that you keep, the associations that you have, the inclinations of mind and behavior that you have, you will find different groups within this world as well. while for some people, it is as if for some, let's say having an argument or raising your voice in the middle of the road might be absolutely, horrendous, might be a horrendous thought and a demeaning thought. For some, it is absolutely normal and just usual. You know, it just classifies the differentiation between the mind and the way that the minds operate. And I don't think the lower, or the at least the Chatu Maharaja and the lower divine realms are very different from these planes, from this plane here.
Bhante, I only mentioned that because if I recollect correctly, I remember one of the monks who gave one of the talks in Sinhalese for a weekend whom you had invited. Because somebody was saying, so, I only want to, somebody asked a question, I want to realize Nibbana, therefore I would always want to be born in a good, as a human realm. I remember one, I think it was Mahinda Sarabhik, but I'm Bhante, but I may be making a mistake. He said that, no, it's not like that. Because if you have been a person who's always, reading and practicing, and if you've been meditating and being mindful and doing all these things, that even in those realms, opportunities are there for you to listen to the Dhamma, and therefore you can progress from there as well. Somebody, I remember, I think it was Mahinda Sarahanda, because somebody asked a question, oh, I don't want to be born in those and get stuck for years and miss another because it's something.
Yes,
Okay.
sure.
Thank you.
I think something that I must say is, with all the serious practitioners that I have had the privilege of being around, we have never had the conversation of where do you want to be reborn after death. I mean, it is a joke, right? And I think serious practitioners, when they contemplate Dhamma, this is not something that one should bother with. One should bother with the fact of the way that we are living at this moment, the actions that we choose to perform at this moment, and the state of consciousness at this moment. When we can't control the world that we are currently living in, we are trying to control and bring about situations and conditions for the next world. I mean, isn't that the most un-Buddhistic set of mind that one can have?
Yeah, thank you. But it's surprising that many people ask these questions during question time. Over the last one, the Chutta Chitta and what it meant. But thank you, Bhante.
It's not surprising. I mean, thank you, Dil, but it's not surprising. It is fear. Right? People want to make sure that they know what is coming next. Fear. I mean, it is a part of who we are as Asians. We plan everything out, and we are really so good at it. But the thing is, when it comes to the serious practice, this anxiety connected to death must really be something that we are able to let go of, or else it becomes something which is utterly and completely, I mean, it becomes an anxious thing that brings about a very sort of depressive sort of thought, or even a sense of questioning as to everything that you have done in your life. What we have to do, or what the teaching tells us to do, is let go, right? Is to let go. And that letting go is not a forced motion of mind, it is through insight. The acceptance of the fact that you can't control itself is a wholesome karma, and one of the highest that exceeds any other wholesome karma there is, right? And the fact of doing something, I mean, the Buddha does relate stories where he says, what are you going to take for your next birth, right? So what the actual question is, what are you going to take for your next birth, not where do you want to go? If one is to tell you, okay, your house is going to burn down, your house is going to burn down, what are you going to take out? Now, for example, if it is me, I would probably take my laptop, because I have the insurance documents there, I have the bank accounts there, I have all the data that I need to restart a new life, or without anything is in my laptop and my phone. So I'll probably take my laptop and phone, right? And people, and you just take something, and for you, for you, it would be something that you could resell, or get some money out of, or something like that. We think so much, or we invest so much into all the other things, but not what we actually want to take out, right? what are we going to, if you had the opportunity to just take one thing, that thing is going to be something which is very, very valuable to you, right? And this thing is weak because we are not investing in that thing. We are only taking care of, it's like the millennial problem of showing off that you're wealthy and not actually being wealthy. It was published as an article in the Guardian, where they sort of evaluated that millennials are really going to have a really hard time when they grow into their 30s, their 40s, because all of them are very have this culture of pretending to be wealthy rather than actually trying to be or get wealthy, right? So in the same way, we sort of invest ourselves into everything else within this world rather than really investing on something which is for the future. And I think when we really go down into the true Buddhist facts, we miss the point, where it is really about investing in our actions and our thoughts rather than sort of fretting over, where we would go next. And these options that you're thinking of or even reading of in the Dhamma are not open to you because we have not cultivated our mind.
And is there any sort of truth or any reality in the thinking that if one is so preoccupied with the dying thoughts or whatever, or where you're going to, whatever, then that means that underlying one of the stages will be fear, that you'll be having a lot of fear. And if you have fear, that might become your arching at the time of death. That might be the arching thought that comes. And then very likely, however much you may have done good things, because fear has always been this underlying thought, where am I going to be, or where, that might be the one that will make the Chutta Citta, and therefore you would.
You're a doctor, and if you just apply your module of psychology, you have the answer already. When we are worrying about something that we can't control, you have the answer already, isn't it?
Yeah, and that will most likely become your arching thought, because that you have been practicing.
Exactly, any sort of karma or anything like that. Because remember, karma, anusaya, and consciousness are interdependent among one another.
Yeah.
Right?
If
consciousness is of a higher state, the anusaya and karma is of course going to be, your chitta will always, chitta, karma, anusaya will always work together.
Yeah.
So excelling of mind is going to excel the karma itself, right? And also act as a block for certain karmas that will come and affect it. That is how, for example, there was a karma where the stanza, I can't remember the gatha, where this child was supposed to die in 7 days. When the Buddha told the father, and the father wanted to save the child, the Buddha said, organize a dana in your house in 7 days. The child had to die of a karmic Mara was to take the child, and when something demonic. And then the Sangha was in the house, the Buddha was in the house, the Dhamma was being taught, chanting was going on. It was a very wholesome atmosphere, and these sort of unwholesome energies could not come near the child. The child sort of skipped the 7th day, and the child did not die, grew up to live a full, wholesome life, right? And for example, in Sri Lankan culture, and not in Sri Lankan, Asian culture, Asian Buddhist culture, we have the fact of people getting ordained when they have sort of bad luck. And that also does work. Why? Because not because the people say, because it's the siura. It's not the siura, it's a practice. What is this siura? Look at this. It's just a piece of cloth. It's not the siura, it is the practice. It is the mind. That is what repels the petty, weaker karmas, or sometimes even changes the circumstances in your life to such a strong extent where now you are unaffected, or those karmas become ahosi. The fact of the Buddha changing one's name, people ask, why do you change the name? Right? Because this gives you a new identity. You do not associate yourself with your previous faults and mistakes and doings and all of that. It allows you to be reborn anew. That consciousness is powerful. Now, that consciousness reaches a state of purity just by what? Now, when a monk gets ordained on the first day, you know, there are so many devotees, you know, trying to offer something to these monks who are, you know, just ordained fresh. You know, unue, you know, right? And people want to, because they're very pure, their sila has not been broken and all of this, right? Which is, you know, quite true. And that is just because, or just by that person believing that he has now been reborn and is disconnected by everything committed in the past. That mind, it's not that he went through a process of brainwashing, no. He believes that he is new. That makes the offering of a devotee made to this person who has just ordained also something of great fruit. Because the person believes the person is virtuous. That is that power of believing in yourself to such an extent where you believe that you have been reborn. Just imagine, with every part of Dhamma that we read and take in, that you start believing that the fact that you are reborn moment to moment, you are reborn anew with now the new insights that you have cultivated in your life. Powerful.
So Bhante, this is also like what you were telling us in the last sermon that you gave about, say, everybody learns of the dependent origin, but you know, they sort of learn cause and effect, but you also said if you have the transcendence of that, you know, without just saying, you know, of dependent origin, that is what it really is.
I mean, as you know, Dhamma can be connected to each and everything, but transcendence doesn't come along, you know, just because you choose to say I am in the process of transcending. Transcendence comes along when you choose to disassociate yourself with the identity that you perceive, the identity which is created by the 12 parts of the Paticca.
So I mean, so therefore, without reacting, you have to break it, and you have to respond. So that's what the meaning of transcend is, not just the meaning of a word. You have to actually have developed enough to practice it like that. Because that's why you are using them. No? This is Paticca, then this is transcending a Paticca. You refer to that. Many people don't refer to it.
Yes, I referred to it, but I didn't go over the transcendent, the properties of transcendence. When we go over the properties, maybe on a different session, it will be a little bit more different, you know, but it is a state of arrival.
Thank you, Bhante.
All right, so 8:34, we will do group Dhammas on Wednesday. For those of you, I know some, not all of the Abhidhamma students can join on Wednesday, isn't it? Can all of you?
Can I also come?
Can she come? No, it is actually like a cult. We don't allow people in, you know.
Because that's a sutra class.
No, so we are, because Dhammas are mostly represented by sutra. It could fall into the sutra class. So we can do the group Kamma. So if anyone misses it, we can look at the recording. All right. So then we will do group Kammas on Wednesday. Take care. See you.